you. I'd just like to remind everyone that there are two opportunities for you to address the board. The sign-up sheets are in the back of the room, and see back there. With that, we will go to agenda approval, deletions, additions. Dr. Baracco.
So there are no adjustments to the agenda that you received last week, so seek board approval for that agenda.
So moved.
We have a motion by Dr. Malco.
Second.
Second by Mr. Marshall. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Mr. Marshall, is there any correspondence?
We have an email that was addressed to all the board in our central office. I think it's probably more appropriate if I were to read that or enter it into the record when we get to Dr. Rocco's discussion. And I'm sorry, I just don't have the agenda in front of me here. I'm usually used to a hard copy. I haven't got into my iPad yet. Oh, thank you. Dr. Rocco, do you have that discussion coming up in your segment of the issue that was discussed in that email from? No. Oh, okay. I don't know if it's appropriate to read that at this time, if the board deems that. Do you want me to go ahead and read that email?
I don't think we should.
Okay.
It was addressed to all the board members,
Yes, and central office.
and everybody read it. So I think we're covered.
Okay, fair enough. Other than that, I have nothing else.
Thank you. We'll move on to our liaison committee updates.
Thank you, Janice. Well, I'm sorry.
We'll move on to our liaison committee updates. Mr. Marshall.
Nothing to report.
Thank you. Ms. Kelly.
Just a few things. I don't know how pertinent it is, but for the town of Schererville, they issued 21 new home permits in the first quarter. A little more tax revenue coming our way. Something else that is hopeful, Lures Tree Farm development. The developer has reached back out to the town to start a dialogue about possibly moving that forward. Very, very early stages, nothing written in stone. And then we were looking at those 3 restaurants coming in, Chick-fil-A, Olive Garden, and the Longhorn Steakhouse.
Okay.
More tax revenue for us, right? However, Olive Garden is seriously considering moving into a existing building in Highland. I believe it's the Old Country Buffet, so we might lose out on that one, but the other 2 are still moving forward. And that's all I have.
Thank you. Dr. Medlin?
Nothing to report for the Wellness Committee or the Dyer Redevelopment Committee.
Thank you. Dr. Malco.
Do I need to push this button? Yes, we had our Lake Central Education Foundation meeting, and there will be no summer grants, but we will be doing another fundraiser, same as everybody's trying to raise funds. We are cooperating and coordinating with Panera. That will be on May 27th. So I'll keep you updated about that. And legislative, I think I forwarded that to all the board members about the current status. I would encourage everyone at these late hours to reach out to our representatives. That would be Hal Slager and Rick Niemeyer, and let them know how you feel about some of the issues that are going on in education. Are you going to address any of this, Dr. Rocco? Is it on your agenda? Okay. But if you've been reading in the papers what's going on, they are looking to take more and more money away from public ed to give to the private schools. And we just don't feel that our Constitution is established to do all that. We feel that there should be the one school for all. And so if you could help us with those initiatives, that would be great. And I believe that's all.
Thank you. And the only thing I have is for Dollar Scholars, we had 42 seniors apply for scholarships. And we will be combining our awards ceremony with the high school with Mrs. Reddig and her evening. So we will not do our Sunday tea.
And when is that? Is that the one in May, like
May
May
18th?
26th? May 18th?
Mm-hmm.
And how many student apps did you have last year? Is this more or less the 42?
Oh, less, definitely
Less?
less. Mhm.
Okay.
That's all I have. So we'll move on to our official school board business topics, consent agenda. Dr. Baracco.
Thank you again. Seek board approval for the minutes from our executive session and regular board meetings on April 5th, and also board approval for the claims, payroll, and extracurricular expenditures that you received in your packets last week.
Move to approve.
We have a motion from Mr. Marshall.
I'll second that.
We have a second from Dr. Malco. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign? Motion passes. And I take it we have no public comments? Thank you. So we'll move right into our official school board business topics, regular agenda. Dr. Baracco.
All right, and for our first item is a couple of recognitions from Lake Central High School. I'd like to introduce Mr. Bigley, high school principal, to introduce those folks.
Thank you, Dr. Bracco. We have two great awards to present tonight and to recognize two great young students. And I'll start with this is kind of an up-and-comer award, and that is the Harvard Book Award. We have a couple of grads. They are Gwen Hockman Stewart and her husband. She was a LC class of 2002, and she's worked with us to continue to do this award. And we do it with an up-and-comer junior. And we look for a junior that displays excellence in scholarship, high character, combined with achievement in other fields. And through working with the faculty and sitting down and looking over the very high GPAs of many of our juniors, we made the tough decision of giving this to a young man who's a true standout, and that is Mr. Ethan Schasberger. So Ethan, if you come down here, we'd like to present you with achievement. Ethan? And with the Harvard Book Award comes a book, and it is entitled Making the Most of College. And we look for great things in you and the future. Congratulations. You guys can introduce you with the great people. And your sister is 8th grade, so she'll be up here next year.
Wait, Mr. Bagley, could you bring, we need a picture. No, you in it, Mr. Bagley? Thank you.
Congratulations.
Our next
Not yet.
award is the Indiana Association of School Principals. We nominate a student each year, and a senior student, and we look for someone who is just all around high academic, does things inside and outside the classroom, and we're allowed as a school to nominate one. And from there, they are awarded the Academic All-Star distinction. And we had the honor of having one of our students earn Indiana All-Star Regional level award, and that is to our senior, Gianna DeTolo. Now, Gianni is planning to go to Purdue next year and study computer science, so he's got a very bright future ahead of him, and he's just done an outstanding job here at Lake Central. I tell you, you guys make our job easy, and you guys are just great to have, and we really appreciate it. And I have to, he was our aide down in the office in his freshman year. Mrs. Stamper had him down there working in the bookkeeper's office, and she believes that she had a little hand in this, so. A great job.
Mr. Bagley, congratulations.
Picture for Cindy.
Yeah,
Okay.
I need a picture. Me too. I'm getting teary. I want you in the picture, but.
I used to like doing this with Mr. Gandolfi.
Thank you.
We also have Mr. Graber from Clark Middle School here tonight to talk about the Patriots pen.
Good evening, members of the board. Unfortunately, our representative cannot be here tonight. She had other But congratulations to Allison Dolasicki. She actually wrote an essay for the Patriots Pen in the writing contest in this past fall. She won the area award. Her essay was sent to the state, where her essay was actually chosen as state runner-up. There were over 500 essays submitted, and she was number 2. So the VFW came to our building on March 17th, presented her with a plaque, a $300 check, and a little certificate. So we're very proud of Addison. And then her teacher was Lori Rosine. So congratulations to both of them as well.
Congratulations.
No, I didn't know if all of our recipients, did you announce your parents? Could you introduce your parents and your family members to us?
My mother, Teresa, is my father, Aaron.
And who's beside you?
My sister, Carol.
How about you?
My father, Daniel, and my mother, Taylor.
Thank you very much, and thanks, parents, for your support.
Great job.
And we are going to move on with the rest of our meeting, but if you folks need to get on to something else, we understand. So, thank you for coming. My next item is a combination information and an action item. Many of you recall that I started meeting with the secondary music people right after Christmas to talk about all things music. My impetus was mainly around student participation in choir and band. Of course, other people have talked to us in the past about where we rank with marching band competition or how we do in ISMA, solo and ensemble. I'm interested in success as well, but I'm more interested in participation. And so the nexus of our conversation was around increasing participation. There is going to be an ask at the end of this presentation, but I think I want to highlight some of the things that came out of those conversations. One of the first things that came out of it was that we have made a concerted effort to work with our theater coordinator to ensure that all middle school band and choir groups will get an opportunity to perform at least twice each year beginning next year. It requires more intentional scheduling. It also requires some of our high school folks to be a little less territorial. And in order to get them in there, it won't require too many practice times to be given up by high school groups because it is a high school facility after all. But I do think with scheduling in advance and getting those students into performing in the big hall, as I like to call it, I think it gives a different feel to that performance, and certainly students and families enjoy being in there anytime there's a concert. We also have talked through a process with board permission, of course, to have a sign-up process to go back to the old process of having private music lessons after school for a limited period of time where we don't charge those, whether it's our own instructor or an outside instructor, a facility fee for them to sit in one of those small rooms and give a private lesson. It is convenient for parents, and we certainly know, any of us who ever took private lessons or had kids who do, when you're taking lessons, you tend to practice more and you become a better performer, whether it's singing or playing an instrument. So we're interested in that. We also have gotten with our middle school principals as we were having the conversations. If you go back to 2010 and 11, when we did some cuts around this place, we used to have dedicated music secretaries at the middle school. And so we've looked at the list of things that our middle school directors are doing, and we've carved out some things that our principals say with their staff in the office, and possibly adding an hour or an hour and a half to an aide or a secretary's day, they'll be able to take some of this stuff off the plate of those directors. We also have, and the final ask is going to be about the percussionist specialist, but because if we are able to add this percussionist, somebody who knows how to teach all those percussion instruments, and can be dedicated to that group of students, it will free up our high school instructors to visit each middle school every semester so that they can become familiar with the students who will be coming to them and also to work with those students. And so the idea is to transition more students from the middle schools into freshman music, and then it's the high school director's job to keep those students in high school music once they've completed their first year, which is their academic honors requirement. So that's where we are. Some other items that we discussed that will not be in play this year because some things still have to take place. We've had a request to consider handbells as an after-school club. Of course, anytime we do something like that, that begins with a conversation with our teachers, as we have, not unlimited funds. We also have talked about a piano accompanist to support the choirs. Again, if we're going to do a stipend, that conversation needs to be had with our teacher leaders. Doesn't mean that it has to be a teacher that does it. Just means that we go through a process of discussing that still. And one of the other asks was from those middle school folks to get 1 day per week out of their middle school advisory responsibility. We're not comfortable making that decision at this time. We're not ruling it out, but because of the other activities and the things that our teachers do to support students during advisory, we're just not sure we want to do that for the 21-22 school year, but it's still on there. I also, for your benefit, included the middle school enrollment, just so you can see, and hopefully as we move through time, we'll see those numbers increase at the middle school. So the ask this evening is that the board approve posting a percussionist specialist job. That person would spend 1 day each week at the middle schools and 2 days at the high school, including teaching percussion class, including being the sponsor of the winter drum line, and also being an assistant in the marching band, in which percussion obviously plays a key role in keeping the beat for our competition band. And so because we haven't had it for a few years, it feels like a new position. And so seeking board approval to post that job for a percussion specialist who will be a licensed teacher and be in the bargaining unit.
I would gladly support that recommendation. So I make that motion that we would post that position.
We have a motion by Dr. Malco.
Second.
We have a second by Dr. Medlin. Any discussion?
This will be,
Janice, will you turn your microphone
I'm
on?
sorry. And this will be a person that will help with the middle schools and the high school.
1 day at each middle school and 2 days at the high school. The extracurricular will be predominantly high school duties.
Okay. Because I noticed going to the band concerts last week, I really enjoyed them. We have so many different levels of bands. We have like 6 different levels. And then we have the jazz bands at the high school.
Correct.
So this person will do the 3 middle schools and then 2 days at the high school?
Correct.
Okay. And my other question for you, and even though it has nothing to do with this motion, so I'll wait till we vote on the motion, then I'll ask my other question.
Any other discussion? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign? Motion passes.
Okay, I have one more question. I see that if we waive the facility use fees for teachers and outside instructors to provide private lessons at school, what impact will that have on teachers that do tutoring after school? Will they also fall underneath this waiving of
Not currently.
facility use fees?
Not currently.
So it will be just the music people
For
at
now,
this point?
yes.
Okay, okay. Because it'll come up. They'll ask about it, I know, so just wondering. Thank you.
Okay, my second item is I sat in on the Indiana School Board Association use of federal stimulus webinar. This is somewhat of a follow-up on some of the information Mr. James presented at our last gathering. One of the key slides was 5 questions regarding the use of funds, which a couple of these questions Rob and I talk about all the time. The first, will the use of the funds prevent, prepare, or respond to COVID-19? So did COVID-19 result in you needing to spend money? If it's related to COVID-19, then it probably fits. That's sort of where we've been from the start. I think that the stuff that we've talked about really answer yes to that first question. So if anybody says, how is the school district planning on spending the ESSER money? Well, they're planning to use it in response to COVID-19, okay? And I'll get into some other details here in a second about something that could vary a little bit or feel like it's not directly on COVID-19, but according to more specific language in the grants, it does. I included here the deadlines. The expert from the NSBA, Chip Slavin, believes that the ESSER 2 and the soon-to-be-announced ESSER 3 will be extended, but the current deadlines are on the sheet that you have. It was interesting that the expert could not commit, because a lot of people are talking about giving some staff some hard work or combat or difficult year stipends in response to teaching dual delivery and so forth. The expert said that he wouldn't rule it out, but there's not firm guidance in that area yet. And he said it would be easier to justify it if the staff performed something outside of their normal workday, that would be cleaner. I will share with the board that Lisa Tansel from the Indiana School Board Association, their lead attorney, is writing something up on this, some guidance on this that should be presented in the next journal that we receive in the mail. So we'll be sure to compare her thoughts to some of the stuff that we got last week from the federal level. Remember again that we've listed some things that we think we'll use it for. Most of this stuff, has been in Rob's document. If you turn over to the back of my talking points, though, these are a couple of pieces I pulled out of the webinar last week that we should be able to cover all those substitute teacher, nurses, custodians, and bus drivers costs when we ask somebody to stay home because they were a close contact quarantine. And so that was directly, that cost was directly impacted by our process in Indiana of quarantining or isolating COVID positive people or quarantining close contacts. So we think that could be a sizable reimbursement to our education fund. We also think we can be coming into some summer training specific to the return to school post-pandemic, and there is an opportunity there for us to have a stipend for our staff members who we want to train during the summer to help them understand what subtle differences there may be as we return to school in the fall. That agenda is yet to be developed, of course, but I do think it again answers yes to that first question that was presented to us on COVID.
Good point.
Any questions about that item?
Okay, so with the substitute teacher, nurse, custodian, bus driver costs related to absences, some of them, bus drivers I know, had like 2 absences. They had to be quarantined twice, and so it impacted their pay. Am I remembering that correctly?
Well, it didn't impact their pay. The second time, they would have used the days we gave them this year to get paid. But they
Okay,
had benefit days. The first time, the federal law protected them,
okay,
so we paid them.
Okay.
And what I'm suggesting is the person who took their place, we can cover that substitute cost from ESSER funds.
okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
So
Moving on to Terry.
Oh, but see, before we move on to Mrs. Mucha, I had a board member ask me who would be doing Mr. Ledger's section for Mr. Matthew Williams tonight. Would you be opposed if we moved him up and did Mr. Ledger's portion now? You guys opposed? All right. Thank you.
Okay, Bill's unable to be with us this evening, so at this time, I'd like to introduce Matthew Williams. He is a former Coling student and a current high school student, and he wants to talk to us about his upcoming Eagle Scout project at Coling Elementary School, and I will turn it over to him.
Hello, I have a speech for my project. Hello, my name is Matthew Williams. I am a sophomore at Lake Central High School. I am also a Life Scout in Boy Scout Troop 532 in Cherville. I am working on my requirements for Eagle. As a part of my requirements it is a project that benefits a church, school, or community. I have chosen the Coling Trail for my project. I'm here to ask for your approval for my Eagle project. In 3rd grade, my teacher, Mr. Wiersma, took my class out to the trail during our school day. We stopped at the bridge because it wasn't safe for the class to cross. I always wanted to see the rest of the trail but never got the chance. For my project, I want to put a support beam under the bridge where the creek has eroded away, making it safe for crossing. I want to clean up the trail and create a path. And I want to clean up the benches and the teacher podium in the back of the trail to make it usable again for classes. I want to execute my Eagle project on Saturday, June 5th from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. I have Sunday, June 6th as a day in my plan should not something get completed on June 5th. Once you approve my project proposal, I take a flyer I made to my troop next Monday and will reach out to my family and friends to recruit volunteers. Another part of my rank requirement is that I fund the project through donations or fundraising. It is done by me, and the school does not need to pay for any of the resources needed for my project. I hope to do my very best for the school and the trail, and hope that the teachers and students can use the trail for school activities. I would like to thank the council for considering my project. I would also like to thank the members of my troop, Ms. Cruz, the Coling staff, my family, for supporting me during my project.
So that sounds like a great project, and you've done some research.
Yes.
Because you know what needs to be put in to make that strong. If we would like to make a donation, would we just send it to the high school and put your name on it?
I believe so, yes. Yes, I believe so. I believe yes, you can, but I'm pretty sure that we are the troop. I'm supposed to do most donations, but I believe that the school can put in donations.
Oh, it would just be if any individual in the room wants to do that. It wouldn't be the school.
Oh, okay.
It's just like if I wanted to make a
How do we
donation.
get that to you?
I'm not entirely sure.
Mr.
Ms. Cruz, I believe.
To do some research, and I can send an email to the board to find out exactly how to make a donation or go to the trail project.
Thank you.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
And Matt, what are you gonna do with the trail?
I plan on cleaning it up and not rebuilding, but putting a support beam under the bridge so that it can be suitable for walking again, because currently it is not.
Take a photo. That's really cool.
How long do you think that's going to take you? All day Saturday? I know you said 9 to 4.
Yes, around all day Saturday, and if not completed Saturday, I will finish it on Sunday.
Matt, how many volunteers would you like to have?
I believe I'll have around 20 to 30 for my troop.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Nice.
Wow. Do you mind standing next to him for a picture? And actually, Mr. Begley, he's one of your students now. Do you want to come down?
That happened quick.
Yeah.
There you
Oh,
go.
here we go.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. Thank you.
And
Thank you.
it's a pretty big, task that he's taken on. I know Mrs. Seuss has some students that came to Coling, but, I know a lot of students do service projects, and he was saying that one of his troop leaders said that the bridge alone could be a service project, so the work he's putting in, he's going well above and beyond.
Oh, that's nice. That's
Yes.
nice.
And I have to apologize, I didn't realize that they couldn't use the bridge, so they've never been able to use that bridge then.
Well, they get
Oh.
up to the bridge and then they turn.
They have to
back
turn
around.
around, okay.
How long has the bridge been out of service?
When I got there, which I think this is my 7th year, I stopped counting, but, it
Okay.
that, because it's just not appealing, and
Sure.
so it really is a great educational opportunity that Matthew is opening up to the students to be able to look at the ecosystem, the life that is there on the trail, and some writing and science and things like that. At the very end of the trail, there are benches and a podium there, which no one can really get to, but teachers used to have class all the way at the end of the trail, and that hasn't happened at least in the last 7 years.
Wow.
So the teachers are going to be really excited, and the students.
Matthew, thank you for taking on this project.
Yeah, I went back to the back of the trail, and the benches aren't broken down. They're in actually really good condition. The podium will probably need to be refixed though.
And this is going to be a farewell gift. The Williams family is moving to the Indy area about a week after.
Oh, my goodness. Wow. So Matt, will you have like a ribbon cutting ceremony or a dedication, or what's the process that you go through?
I guess I'm gonna do fix up the trail with my troop, and I guess I'll leave it to Miss Cruz to do.
We mentioned
What?
that his mother, who's also works at Piper, we talked about doing some kind of a dedication, and I think it just depends on what the world is like at that time, but we definitely want to do some kind of grand acknowledgement once it's ready to.
Don't forget to invite Mr. Wurzba. You know, he's at a different school now, but I'm sure he'd be honored.
With advanced knowledge of this specified time, is there any chance we can get some media out there to take pictures, or?
Yes,
Hope-
we will be taking pictures of us working on the trail because it is required for my Eagle as well to take pictures.
Good.
We do have a reporter from the Post that's been
Good.
very generous about stories in the Lake Central District, so I do plan to reach out to her to see if she would be able to cover.
Excellent, excellent.
I move that we accept Matthew's Eagle Scout project.
All right, we have a motion by Dr. Medlin.
I second.
We have a second by Ms. Kelly. I think we've had discussion, but any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Good luck on your project.
Good luck, Matthew.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
And as we said with everyone else, if you'd like to stay, you can, but if you'd like to move on, you can also. And we will move on to Director of Human Resources Personnel, Mrs. Mucha.
Thank you very much. We're recommending that the following personnel changes be approved, but I need to bring to your attention 3 staff members with a huge amount of experience that they have dedicated to our children. Dave Carlson, 28 years of experience. Judith Fair had 30 years altogether, but 15 years here at Lake Central. And Linda Hensley wins with 49 years of experience here at Lake Central. So I recommend everyone, but a special thanks to those 3 staff members.
Thank you. Move
Thank
to
you.
approve.
We have a motion by Mr. Marshall,
Second.
second by Dr. Medlin. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you. We'll move on to our Director of Primary Education, Mrs. Schoen.
Thank you. My first item is to seek your approval of the professional leave requests that were included in your packet.
We have a motion by Dr. Malco,
Second.
second by Mrs. Kelly. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign? Motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you. My second item is just to give you an update on kindergarten enrollment. Since this year, the process was different than in years past. It's all online, and I was interested in how it was going to compare to years past, and so far it is right in line with what we normally see. Since the last time I reported, we've added 4 more kindergarten students, and that's about how it goes through the spring. We just have them trickling in, and then about July is when we start getting the summer enrollment. So evidently it's going to go as it always does. Our numbers are up from last year, but a little bit down from the year before, but we're also not at the end of enrollment. So I just wanted to share that information with you. And my last item is also Sarah's first item, but that is to give you information on the social studies textbook adoption that we worked through this year. And I know Sarah shared in an email earlier today the process, but I'll just kind of run through what elementary did again. We do have a committee, and that committee, the members are chosen by LCTA. For the elementary committee, each building had a K-2 representative and a 3-4 representative. So that's what the committee was made up of. We attended the virtual caravan that they had this year. And then we also had samples of the materials delivered to each school so teachers could look at them. The committee met several times. We did not have any additional presentations because the committee wasn't interested. They felt that they had gotten all of the information they could from the caravan and looking at the materials. So in the end, kindergarten has adopted Scholastic News. Many of their standards are addressed in their language arts units. The kindergarten social study standards are like American songs and symbols and holidays, calendar, community helpers. So there are things that are easily addressed in the read-alouds and things that they do on a daily basis. First and second grade wanted Scholastic News and also trade books for their read-alouds and some small group text sets. Again, those social studies standards at those grade levels aren't real meaty, so that they would need to do a lot of reading. A lot of it occurs during the language arts unit where they're reading and then discussing. And then third and fourth grade chose the publisher Savas, formerly known as Pearson, and that will be a textbook, more traditional. They went with Savas because fourth grade is Indiana's history and geography, and Savas was the only textbook that had a complete textbook dedicated to Indiana information. So we really felt that it was our only choice. So third grade went along with that because they could make anything work, and fourth grade really needed that dedicated Indiana textbook. Any questions?
So does the State Department of Education still provide an approved list, and then we select from their approved list?
They do not.
They do not?
No. They still don't even really have, you know, how it used to be, this was the year for reading, this is the year. We still follow that, but that is no longer dictated by the state.
And I suppose that's because so many of them are going online with materials? Yeah. Now, I remember you bringing some books to us, and they were really rich books with a lot of diversity. And are those still being used, and would those tie into something like this?
So those were, I purchased those with our early intervention grant money, and they are part of classroom libraries in first and second grade. So those are available for students to read every day. They're the books that they can read during independent reading. The teachers also do use those as read-alouds. So yes, they are used every day, and I hear every time I meet with those two grade level teachers, I hear how wonderful the books are and how much kids love them and they love them. So it was a great purchase.
I can see they could fit in very well into the
Yes.
subject area too. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Move on to our Director of Secondary Education, Mrs. Castaneda.
Thank you. For my first item, I'm going to pick up where Teresa left off at with social studies textbook adoption. As my email said, we use a very similar process to what she just described. The union appoints members to our textbook adoption committees. We all took part in Caravan this year, which was virtual, so that was a little bit different. And then our teachers did want publishers to come back for a deeper dive. They all were able to narrow down to their top 2 by grade level or by subject up at the high school level. Typically, when we take that deeper dive, in previous years, I would try to open it up to all the teachers of that grade level or subject, but with all the limitations on substitutes this year due to COVID and things like that, It was not something that we were able to do, so the committee was the one that kind of solely made the decision, which is fine because there are representatives from all the buildings and all the grade levels on those groups. On the list, you'll see that our 5th grade students, or teachers at the middle school level, actually decided to pause a year. With our 5th grade teachers teaching multiple subjects, they just had language arts adoption a year ago. They went through this entire year with an entirely new textbook and just were feeling a bit overwhelmed. And so we agreed to pause for a year, which goes back to your question that we don't have to follow those strict textbook adoption cycles, so we can be flexible and wait a year before bringing a new textbook in for them. So they'll keep their current McGraw-Hill textbook for another year. 6th and 7th grade social studies chose Holt McDougall Harcourt for their Eastern and Western World Geography. And then 8th grade went ahead and selected McGraw-Hill, which is their current publisher, though this is an updated version. It was interesting both at the middle and the high school level as we worked through the rubric that we used to evaluate it, that so many members on the committee noted that after this year and all that they had to do with technology, they finally knew exactly what components they were looking for when evaluating the online version of the textbook and the online resources that came with it. So if there's a small silver lining from this very difficult school year, that may be it. At the high school level, I'm not going to run through each subject for you. A lot of our AP classes went with Bedford, Freeman, and Worth, which is a pretty well-known publisher for those college-level type courses. And then there was some selections made from McGraw-Hill, Savas, and HMH from the other areas as well. The AP classes are going to continue on with 1 book per student. For most of the other classes, they actually have decided to do class sets along with online access. So it's 1 less book the students have to lug around, but since we'll have Chromebooks next year, they'll always have access to the book. And one nice thing that the publishers did is the online version doesn't require internet access. They've set it up where it's fully accessible on the Chromebook through an app, so it gets downloaded so they always have that at their disposal, even if there's issues with Wi-Fi going on at home, which was a nice update by the publishers as well. Any questions on those?
So I'm curious, especially as we get into the middle school and high school, do they cover the systemic racism and those issues that are in our world today on a daily basis?
Well, all of our teachers work with current events and have dialogue about that, but in terms of the content and the textbooks being up to date, though we do look at whether the maps and the information are up to date in the subject areas that come all the way up to the current time period, sometimes they're still behind just by the nature of what's going on. Like, you wouldn't see the Black Lives Matter protests, for example, covered in any of the textbooks. But a lot of them have online resources that they are updating authentically, and as things are happening, they have partnerships with different news outlets, and so you'll see a lot of magazine-type articles, which is good informational text for our students to work through too, that will cover those more current topics.
Right. Well, that's great. I just want to make sure that they are exposed to that in an environment where they can have civil discourse and be okay with it. There was something else I was going to say. Oh, I'm sitting here thinking about social studies, and with everything that's going on in current events, it's a lot coming at teachers to keep everything up to date in that arena.
It is, but as a former social studies teacher, that's something that was always near and dear to my heart, and one of the things that drove me into that occupation, and our staff is committed to that as well.
I think you're right on that. Thank you.
Any other questions? And then for my second item, I am seeking your approval for the professional leave requests that were in your board packet.
I move that we approve the professional leave requests.
We have a motion by Dr. Medlin,
Second.
second by Ms. Kelly. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes, thank you.
Thank you.
So we'll move on to Director of Business Services, Mr. James.
Thank you. My first item is to seek your approval for the donations that were included in your board packet.
So,
We have a motion by Dr. Malco and a second by Mr. Marshall. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you very much. My second item you have at your station is our financial reports. And so since we're at the end of the quarter, at the end of March, I just want to briefly go over the 2 statements that we present here to the board. So the first one that you're going to see in the top left-hand corner says Education Fund. and that is our education fund. It's only that, it's for this fiscal school year. You'll see in the top left, it starts in July, and through March, those are all actual data, and the last 3 months are what our estimates are. You will see that we are running very well. Everyone always jumps to the bottom right-hand corner to see, how it's going to be. Now, it says $3.9 million for revenue over expenditures this year, but that is misleading, because if you look back in October, the school board approved us using referendum money, which was one of the main selling points, is to shore up the cash balance of this fund. And the board transferred $3.7 million in as a one-time area, if you recall. And we have 2 board members who weren't here at the time, but during the refunding of our bonds, S&P was really concerned about our cash balance in that fund, and has been for years. So this shored up that fund. So really, we're running right at the margin, about $200,000 to the good, and really that's where we want to be. We don't want to be running high. We want to be pushing money into the classrooms and supporting our teachers, and that's exactly where we are at. If you look at the very top, we talk about cash balance goals, and we were always in that 5 to 8%, when the rule of thumb is to have at least 10 to 12% of cash on hand. And with our projection, we should be around 11.5% at June. So we're right where we need to be for good cash flow. One of the other things I want to bring to your attention is, if you look on the lower half with expenditures, there toward the bottom, we have a line of transfers to operations fund. As you know, starting in January of 19, every month we move money out of the education fund, where our state support comes into, and we have to move it to the operations fund to help support that fund. And you will see about halfway through that starting in January, we were able to reduce that amount because we were running well in the operations fund, and so our monthly amount was reduced from $472,500 to $400,000. So, the board set that during our budget session back in August, but it is just another instance of us showing us being able to keep more money in this fund and provide that support to our teachers, which is really what we're here for. So,
Rob, before you go on, could you remind me what the operations fund is?
So operations fund is pretty much anything that is not classrooms. So the education fund is teachers, guidance counselors, paraprofessionals, principals. They are all considered education fund. The operations fund is custodians, bus drivers, central office, school board, technology department. So it's not actually direct, we're all here for education, but it's not directly classroom related, even though they do consider nursing and the principal's office part of the education fund because they have a direct interaction with students. But the school board and even the superintendent are not considered. But we didn't make the rules, we just follow the way the codes are. So any questions on that page? So about a year or so ago, I also started doing this other page, which combines our 4 main funds, because we're very appreciative of our taxpayers who approved our operating referendum to bring those additional dollars into the school district, and that operating referendum money has its own fund. So really, when between the operations fund and the education fund working together now, and we got referendum money coming in, I think it's important for us to share with the board of really how are all these funds working together, which is really how the district is working as a whole. And so I didn't provide all the other sheets, but this spreadsheet is a combination of the education operations referendum and our rainy day fund. And once again, if you go to the bottom right-hand corner, we are operating very well. We're about $3.5 million to the good for this year, as projected. And so I just want to reassure the board that we are in a good financial state. And I know there's a lot of data on here. This might be even small print, but if you have any questions at any time, feel free to reach out to me and you can ask me. And I'll just also remind you that we share these spreadsheets with the teachers union throughout the year when we meet with them with the negotiating team. So that way, when it comes to August or September, we really don't have to talk too much about money because they've been getting updates throughout. So we try to share as much of them as possible. So Any questions regarding any of these two at this time? Okay. My next item is to just give the school board an update on tax rates and tax bills. If you live in the county, you've probably received a tax bill within the last 2 or 3 weeks, either directly or through your bank. So this is a little bit of analysis I do each year just to kind of show the board or how we stack up and where we are. We take our tax rate very seriously here. Again, we're very appreciative of our taxpayers for approving the referendum and so forth. So at your station, you have a little packet with some charts and graphs, and then a little summary page here. So the first thing for what's the basis of the tax rate is there's the need to raise funds for not only the schools but the municipalities, and then there's the assessed valuation of all the properties within our borders, and then by doing a little math, they compute how much tax rate needs to be to raise the dollars based on what the assessed values are. So the higher your assessed values are, the less of a rate is needed to raise the same amount of money. Coming into 2021, the value of all of our properties within the school district was up almost $350 million. It was up over 7.5%, which is great. That means if we wouldn't have changed anything and had the same need, the tax rates would have gone down. The AVs went up 4.8% from 19 to 20. And so when you have higher assessed value, that also means that there's less property tax cap impact, where some of our urban neighbors or rural places, you hear about the tax cap and how much they're losing. By having a high assessed valuation here, we have minimal, in essence, really no tax cap, and that's why we haven't had to have that discussion here too much. But on the first page, I show you what our Lake Central tax rate is, and for 21, it's 83.72 cents. That's down almost 10 cents from last year, and you're like, wow, how the heck did we do that? Well, if you recall, in the fall, we refunded 2 big debt issues. Well, the 2011 bonds were smaller, but we refinanced the debt here from the referendum project for the high school in Protzman, and we saved like $1.5 million a year, and also it cut 10 cents off the tax rate. So we are thankful for our underwriters and our financial advisors, and I'm thankful to the school board to do that. So that will help us in the future. And you can see where our school tax rates with the other school districts in Lake County of the 16. The second page just pretty much shows that in a nice colorful chart. But when it comes to your tax bill, you get the county rate, and there's the school, the municipality, and the library, and the township, and so forth. So really you care about what's the total tax rate. That's what your tax bill is based on. So then what I do is I decide, well, if you lived in Cherville, or if you lived in Highland, or you lived in Maryville, what's my total tax rate going to be? And on that second set of charts and graphs, you can see that still St. John and Cherville have the 2 lowest tax rates in the county. Dyer is creeping up a little bit more, and that is because Dyer has recently issued some more debt for parks and some other projects. So because of their additional debt service, they have a higher tax rate. But they're still on the lower half as compared to others. So if you take those 3 together, I think our average is about $2.32, with Cherville and St. John being probably about 15 cents lower than that. And again, there's a graph to show where they are. We take pride in that because I'm not going to go through all the last 4 pages, but a $200,000 house is a $200,000 house regardless of where you put it, and it's the same tax calculation. So when you have a lower tax rate, that means the person who's moving wants to look and see what their taxes are going to be. So on the subsequent 4 pages, I've done an analysis of not only our 3 towns, but our 4 neighbors that many of the Illinois transplants are moving to, between Cedar Lake, Crown Point, Griffith, and Munster. And you can see that they all have a higher tax rate than we are, or our 3 towns. and Griffith and Munster's rates are, you'd be pretty much paying about 33% higher in each of those school districts, or excuse me, in each of those towns than, you know, where we are. So I think people notice that. I think that's why we get a lot of people moving in here, and you know, we want to keep it that way and have people still come. So if you have any questions about the tax rates in general, either for us as a school or as the municipalities as a whole.
I did have a question about TIF, but I don't know if I want to ask it, so I may just hold on it.
Okay.
Have you heard that a lot of businesses are moving from Highland to Sherrillville because of the lower tax rate?
Since I live in town, I mean, I've seen Dick's move from the Highland side across the street.
Yeah.
I think Nicole might be a little bit more apt to answer that question than I would. I don't know per se, but I don't know too many.
Yeah, I just wondered, that's a rumor mill. I don't see Highland on, is Highland on? Oh, here it is, here it is. That's a school tax rate though.
Well, it depends what page you're on. If you're on the third page, then it's the total tax rate.
Ron,
Yep.
just a general question. I see Crown Point is listed in your hierarchy here with Winfield also listed, but you've knocked out St. John Township down to the bottom. A reason?
Well, Winfield is its own incorporated town now.
I was not aware of that.
Yes, they are their own municipality. They're part of the Crown Point School District. They don't
Thank
have their
you.
own separate schools.
That answers that, thank you.
You're welcome. And I know there's some people who are just residents of the St. John Township, so I wanted to include them on the analysis and make sure they didn't feel like they were left out.
Thanks, Ron.
You're welcome, Howard. Any other questions? All
Thank
right,
you for
thank you.
keeping us financially stable and sound and on the
Well,
right
we
path.
try to be, and it's a testament to, it's not just me or my office, it's everyone here in the audience, and
I understand.
and the support from the board too, because, you know, we've always said that we don't want to have a large cash balance in our funds. You see some districts have 30% cash balance, and, you know, we're here to pump money into the classrooms, support our teachers, and that's what we do, try to do every single year. So. All right, thank you.
Thank you, Rob.
All right, with that, we'll move on to, there are no public comments, so that leaves us with board comments and consideration of future agenda items. Start off with Mrs. Kelly.
Well, congratulations to the Centralettes on their big win this weekend.
Yes, yeah, exciting news.
Yeah, it was. And I think the golf team too. They won something, their invitational over the weekend as well.
What did you say, Mr. Begley?
Softball team.
Softball. Yeah, they had a sold-out crowd last week, didn't they? Thank you. Dr. Medlin?
No comments, thanks.
Dr. Malcolm?
Yes. Future agenda items that I would like to talk about or hear about is doing something for the coaching staff and the stipends that are paid for them. I would also like to thank Dr. Medlin and Dr. Bracco for the document they put together for the beginning of our strategic planning, and we had good discussion, and hopefully we can keep working on that. Dr. Bracco, thank you for your presentation at the Dyer St. John Chamber. It was very informative and very useful. Good presentation. And Mr. Begley, good luck with your assignment next week. Good luck with your assignment next week. Will you be going far away or? And where is that? Where? Kansas. Oh, all right, okay. Well, be safe. Okay, all right. And I did have an opportunity. I was working on a project for a former student of mine from Bibbage School, and I had the opportunity of working with the guidance department at the high school, and I must say, It's a good team to work with, very responsive, and I wanted you to know that, Mr. Begley, that they were right on it and really gave this family the attention they needed and deserved. So, thank you. That's all.
Thank you. Mr. Marshall?
I have nothing at this time, thank you.
And it's all been said, so I have nothing also. So with that, is there a motion to adjourn?
I move to adjourn.
Oh, I'm sorry, whoa, whoa, whoa.
Yeah, I wanted to, for
Dr.
future,
Rock.
for future calendar, it occurred to me as I was sitting in the audience that our retiree reception is before our next board meeting on May 3rd. And it's also the evening where we'll announce our Teacher of the Year for the current school year. So if the board could send me an email and let me know if they're interested in moving our work session up to 5 p.m., if you could let me know. And if we have consensus on that, we'll just go an hour earlier so we can be out here in this common area at 6 o'clock to thank our retirees for giving their career to us and congratulate our Teacher of the Year, whoever that ends up being. That process began last week. Today's the cutoff for nominations. Mm-hmm. Now those nominations go to the former Teachers of the Year, the former winners. They narrow the pool down to 5 or 6, and we send it back out to the masses again for a vote. And then the former Teachers of the Year will get together in a week and a half to talk about the comments that get sent in on the finalists, and they will select the winner. I will facilitate that meeting, but I do not vote. So we'll have that for you again on May 3rd. So if you could email me and with a thumb up on 5 o'clock or a thumb down, and we'll go from there. Thank you.
So Larry, just make sure I understand that. We would have our work session at 5 and then go into the celebration and then come in here at 7. Okay. And are they doing the art show this year? Do you know? The senior art display? Or Sean, do you know? Okay. All right. Okay.
Now, we can move for adjournment.
I move that we adjourn.
We have a motion by Dr. Medlin,
Second.
second by Mrs. Kelly. All in favor?
Aye.
Adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you for doing these pictures, Cindy.